Hey guys, thanks for joining me for the Bible study. Now remember, this is a Bible study, so that means I want to hear your comments of what God is showing you through this as well as you hear in mine. So make sure that you let us see those comments of what God is showing you in this study. So we're picking up with First John, the second chapter now, and I'll let you know, I use the ESV. That's what I want to be teaching from and kind of working through. So, but there's a lot of other ones that you can use too, but I'm going to be using the ESV. So you can check out that. So I'm just going to pick up in First John, the second chapter, because he jumps right into, he says, hey, my little children, I am writing these things to you that you may not sin. And then he talks about what happens if we do sin, that we have Christ who pays for those sins, but not only our sins, but the sins of the world as well. But he goes on to say, to tell us that, give us assurance that sin is not what keeps us from God, but sin is an indicator. Continual sin is an indicator of whether we have entered into a relationship with God or not. So sin is something that we can look at and go, wow, if God has come in, a holy God into our hearts, our lives are going to be different. And when he's saying sin, he's not saying that we don't ever sin. He's not saying that. He's saying we don't live in sin. We don't continue to live in sin. But he gives us this reassurance in chapter 7, verse 7, he says, by this we know that we are in him. Whoever says he abides in him ought to walk in the same way in which he walked. In other words, that we follow what he has already shown us and taught us. That is an indicator that God is doing a huge change in our lives and that he has done a huge change in our lives. But then he goes on to talk about how you and I are relating with one another in 1 John. I love that because John is about love and us loving one another. And he says, whoever loves his brother abides in the light, and him there is no darkness, no cause for stumbling. But whoever hates his brother is in darkness. And so he's showing that if a love of God has come to pour it in within us, then hate doesn't come out. Okay, so if we have love poured into us through Christ, then love is going to come out. It's going to be what pours out of us as well. And as you carry on with 1 John, he picks up, he begins to say something that can kind of seem like, oh, what does that mean? In verse 16, he says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. And now he's not saying don't love the people in the world. He's not saying that, because he's continually telling us to love people, to love his people. But he's talking about the sins of this world. He's talking about the flesh. He's talking about coveting other people. He's talking about hate, those angers, those things that cause us to not walk according to his will that he's called us to live in. So these are the things that John is trying to show us. He's trying to show us that love is a great indicator of what God has done in our lives. Now, I just want to leave you with one quick thing. As you are studying, I want to give you a little help. And this is the John MacArthur commentary. This thing's like $20-25 on Amazon. And if you don't have one, grab one. It really can help you do a lot with your study. So I know that was a lot. You need to continue, go back now and reread 1 John chapter 2 and see what God shows you through it as you study it again. I will see you, or I won't see you, you'll see me, but I hope to hear from you tomorrow as we look at 1 John chapter 3. Till then, love you guys.